Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with a creator request, as we typically do, which is where a usually smaller band gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their work. And I do, because we have found some phenomenal music through this program. Today I got an email from John, who is the manager of a band called Tronic Trigger. They wanted to get their stuff on the channel, so let's do it. This track is called Black Mental Epilepsy. Let's dive into this, see what Tronic Trigger is bringing to the table. They're bringing some nasty bass work to start with. Let's go. Very groovy. I'm loving those tom runs. Yeah, nice vocal layering there with a bit of a grit underneath the clean. Interesting note to hang on to there. That's gross. I was not expecting this turn. All that like super groovy moving playing has been replaced with heavy chordal riffs. And as soon as I say that, of course, we shift back to these moving ideas. Interesting rhythmic idea for the vocals on top of this. A lot of those suspended moments when they decide to shift ideas. The tremolo picking really bringing in the intensity, as well as the note choices, creating some instability in the chord. We've got a choir or strings going on in the background as well. Maybe not in this part, in the last one though. Bringing back a little bit of the syncopation to create a groove, but sticking with this lower end, this heaviness. Ooh. really fun, playful moment there as far as rhythmic ideas went. Bringing back some of the ideas from the beginning. Driving intensity and wrapping this up on a high note. Not where I thought that was going. I think I'm gonna have to edit this video and put a graphic warning there at the beginning. That is well, that's a music video, that's for sure. So assuming that our lyrics are aligned with the story told in the visual format, we're looking at a Nathan Bates kind of person. That's right, Norman Bates. I think that's more accurate. Somebody who is understands how to present themselves in typical society, comes off as very wealthy and formal, but is also a serial murderer. And we can see this duality in the music, which is really neat. So what is going on in the music, though? We have our opening and our fake outro. It really felt like we were going to end on this more rock vibe. And we have some really cool things going on here. First of all is lots of bass. We start off the track with bass presence, with a bass line. Gorgeous stuff. It is a very chunky bass, though. It has some really wide, articulated vibration to it. I don't know if it's like, I don't know what kind of strings they're using. I don't know. I probably should have looked. Was it a 5-string bass that would have had a lower string on it that would have given it that extra, I don't know, just weight to it. It has punch. There's a lot of impact on this opening bass idea. I don't remember hearing it as much later on, but it also wasn't isolated, so maybe that was it. But yeah, we start off with just a super punchy bass idea, and I love it. The guitar comes in with this tapping idea that is very cool. It's light, it's on its feet, it's very bouncy in a sense. And then we get the rest of the band coming in. We have these beautiful tom runs going across here. Everybody's really getting a chance to show off within the first minute of the track, which is kind of a big deal, I think, anyways. I don't know if this is their debut music video. They only have 200 subscribers. So no, they actually have videos from 4 years ago, which, all right. They had a trailer for this one, though, and then prior to that, their last video was 2 years, give or take, before this one. And since then, we have a guitar playthrough, a lyric video for another song, and then another song. So yeah, this might have been the first track on a revival, so to speak. 4 years ago, and then 2 years ago, and then this break, and then right here we have it. What I'm getting at, though, with all of this, which seems like a bit of a divergent topic, is that music videos and singles have a special aspect to them in that they kind of have to be both a marketing thing, an advertising thing, and just a song. They have to toe both lines. And I suppose they don't have to, but if you're making a music video and a single, you're doing it hoping to get more people, more eyes on your stuff in a different medium. Otherwise, you just rely on your music on Bandcamp or, YouTube Music or Spotify or whatever. The purpose of making the music video is to get a visual media out there to attract new fans. Um, Usually, anyways. So a first music video, a first single like this after a 2-year break is going to want to bring in new fans, especially if you only have 200 subscribers. Most people who listen to you are going to be first time listeners, like me in this situation. And for this reason, I've mentioned before that, well, actually just now, that you're going to want to catch as many ears as you can, right? This is the song that you're selling yourself on. This is your advertising moment. We don't have, movies have trailers to get you to go check out the movie. Well, this is what people make to get you to go check out an album. And so we have what I've called before as the thesis statement of the song. Usually, that would be the idea that best describes what the song is doing. That is not what's happening here. This is a different kind of thesis statement because there's a secondary component to this song. It is designed to bring in listeners. So the thesis statement here is actually to show off everybody's talent. We get to see some tapping on the guitarist. We get to hear a lead bass element, or a lead element in our bass. We get to hear fills all throughout our opening minute of drumming. This is the moment where all the instrumentalists get to say, look at what we can do. If you enjoy some of these ideas, stick around. We're going to return to them, right? Bear with us while we set up the story. And then we move into our opening verse, I think. And our clean vocals come in. We have this very nice sort of radio rock, Alice in Chains kind of thing going on. And it's interesting because it was not what I was expecting, especially given the way that they looked, right? Not to say that you have to dress a specific way to play a specific type of music, but the all black face paint and the very alt hairstyle, the green hair with like the shaved sides and the ponytail up top. A lot of this feels alt. It feels like stuff that we would see in heavier, more extreme genres, which we did get into. They definitely went to like a deathcore. Is that what this is? It kind of reminds me a little bit of what's that band? Anyway, you guys know the band with the singer Will Ramos. There are parts of this track that reminded me of some of their new work. So, yeah, whatever that is, at Deathcore, I think. Um, that's the kind of music I was expecting given their visuals. But we didn't get that. We got this radio rock vibe at the beginning. We had bouncy guitar work. We had funky, groovy riffs. We had this really upbeat kind of drumming. And interestingly, all this stuff was kind of, uh, like I said, lighter, especially compared to the heavier, lower end, bassier stuff we check out later. It has a nice bounce to it. Very, not bright, but, up there. But then we pair that with like these dreary-esque Alice in Chains kind of vocals. We've got the harmonization on them. And it's a really interesting way of separating some of the musical vibes from the vibes we're getting here in the vocals, and to create this duality right here at the very beginning. It sort of foreshadows the story that we're being told in the visual component. And I thought that was really neat. The vocals, I don't know, I mean, it could just be the vocalist style. It might not have been intentional to create this duality, but I definitely felt that. The vocals could have been a bit more pop rock or radio rock style that would have fit, the music a little more closely. But having that split there and kind of being that duality, I think was very cool. They didn't feel out of place, but they just weren't what I was expecting, which is the second time that something happened that I wasn't expecting, which is very neat. It doesn't take long though. We're only doing this for like 45 seconds or so, and we get into our first deathcore moment. We shift to harsh vocals. We shift to uh, focusing most on the lower end strings of both of our guitars and our bass, um, and going away from some of the bouncier, movier driving ideas to those really chunky riffs, really sitting on a single chord possibly and laying into it with either a static rhythm or a little bit of syncopation, but not much. You don't want to introduce groove. You want this to feel weighty. You want it to have that heavy metalness to it. Um, and the drums slow down. They kind of lose some of their intricacies to get once again into this really rigid rhythmic component that uh, talks about the weight of this section, and all these instruments are coming together for it. And where our instruments were in the higher frequency and our vocals were in the mid to lower range between the bass and the guitars, we've now switched that, and we have these really high pitched harshes that are above what the guitars are doing. We've actually shifted roles there. It's almost like the whole song flipped, which, again, going along with the visual component, assuming the lyrics are alongside that, we have this switch as well from somebody who seems very cultured into being a serial killer, or at least a murderer. We didn't really find about the serial part until at the end of the story, but definitely somebody who is a bit, yes. And we go through a series of these though. There is one that gets a little bit more driving. We shift to eighth notes, I think it was. Um, and the drums pick up. They increase their intensity. They, instead of just these really heavy downbeat strikes, we kind of have a little bit more driving element into it, like the bass kicks going to like eighth notes, and just this overall momentum shift. And then I think we pull back a second, and then we go into the tremolo picking moment. So there's this ebb and flow to this section. It is all heavy. I found it a little difficult to find landmarks, so to speak, so I could mentally put bookmarks down. This is this section. This is this section. It just kind of all felt like the heavy counter to our opening. But I did notice these small rhythmic changes where it's the heavier quarter note stuff, and then we had our eighth note driving section, and then back to some heavier quarter note stuff, and then to our tremolo picking 16th note idea. That also introduced, I had mentioned at that moment, they introduced some really tense notes that created unstable chordal ideas that really increased the tension of that moment. Really beautiful part. And like I said, just this constant ebb and flow. What I thought was really interesting, though, before we progress into the rest of the track and the vocals, because we got to talk about the vocals a little bit before we move on. We didn't have a breakdown. I really figured once we entered this deathcore mode, there would be the slow moment where we just take everything down to a slow pace and just have these really hard hitting notes. And they chose not to do that. And I am so happy about that. I wish I could remember the name of that deathcore band, but we checked out. Well, I said last year that the EP was it was at the top of my AOTY list, and I'm looking forward to their EP later this year, I think. Um, but one of the things that kind of wore me down a little on the EP was that you could always expect. Oh, we also checked out Sun Eater. Yeah, we checked out Sun Eater a couple months ago, I think, which was their new single. Still can't think of the band name though. And I had mentioned in there, actually, specifically in that video, that I'm kind of don't care about breakdowns. Every once in a while is nice, but if you're a deathcore band putting a breakdown in every track, I'm going to get tired of it. It's just going to happen. I don't know why I went to that accent. um, it's just, I'm not a big fan of it. It works for effect. It does not work with repeated effect for me. I'm sure deathcore fans love them. They look forward to them every song. What's this breakdown going to be like? But to me, they're all the same. Maybe it's just nuance. I don't have the ear for it. I don't know. Maybe I just don't like it. But I'm really glad that we got the deathcore ideas here without bringing in the breakdown. We kind of subverted that expectation and just didn't have one altogether. And I think the song works well because of it, at least for me. It was also a bit of a subversion of my expectations because I was waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. It never happened. And that made me happy. It put a smile on my face. So yeah, just very cool. I'm a huge fan of trying new things, and I mean even this, we're combining more of a rock style with the deathcore, which is pretty uh, experimental on its own, but doing deathcore without a breakdown is pretty experimental, and I just really enjoy taking things, even established ideas, and pushing them in new directions. There's also a really strong linearity to this section. We don't have a verse, chorus idea. In fact, the whole song is fairly linear, but even in this heavy section, like I mentioned, it's an ebb and flow. We have speed and pulling it back a little bit and bouncing between these, but we don't just go between the two ideas. We have four distinct sections that follow different rhythmic ideas or follow a pattern of rhythmic ideas in different ways. So I'm really big about I don't, progginess of this. I'm not a big fan of that word, but I think it gets the idea of cross, right? Of trying new things and experimenting within an established convention. It is a good shorthand word for those who know it, but it's just prog is just not. It's a loaded term, right? I don't want to use it too often, but I think it works for the situation. Anyways, back to where we were talking. Heavy section, harshes. The harshes are wild. We have a couple of growlier harshes, and then we have this really cool thin directed harsh. I notice it pops up every time that he kind of puts his tongue over his bottom teeth and kind of tucks it right there behind his lip, and he gets this arch in his tongue, and I guess that changes the shape of the place that the sound. I don't know. I'm not a vocal coach. I definitely am not a harsh vocal coach. I don't understand how the mouth works. I've picked up some things here and there from vocal teachers that I hope know what they were talking about, because I'm just reiterating the things that I learned from them without verifying it. But this is just like, what? This is wild. Tongue placement changes so much about the tone, so much that I didn't. I mean, obviously, I think there's some things going on in the throat as well to change the perceived pitch of it. Um, and it was a wider open mouth, which also makes higher pitch sounds. So, like, those two make sense to me. But the tongue shape, I mean, it's interesting because then it directs it. It's this. I don't know how to describe it. It is wild though. Um, See, and this is what I was talking about. I hate that I'm bringing up Will Ramos so much because this is a video for Chronic Trigger, but Will Ramos put out a couple of vocal playthroughs of their songs, and one of the things I mentioned I was a little disheartened about, not disheartened, and I wasn't happy about was that the microphone covered the mouth, and I was really curious what kind of mouth shapes and stuff was going on to create these sounds. So I'm really glad here we got some very clear shots of the mouth because, like I said, this whole tongue thing just blows my mind. Like, wow, I don't know. I'm very excited about the harshes that are being created here. They are utterly disgusting sounds. They are. But it's very cool too that a human can make them just by tucking their tongue in a specific place and then modulating throat muscles. Bonkers. Uh, Anyways, after here, we return back to our rock style wholesale. I think we brought back both guitar lines, we brought back the bass line, the drum line was the same, went back to clean vocals, harmonized with the right side, which again is an interesting decision. We didn't harmonize both vocals center. We didn't bring in two harmonies to balance it. We had a forward harmony and a right, or a forward vocal and a right harmony. Um, Very interesting. Again, though, duality. There's no real strong way to balance two voices if you want them placed in different sections, but you want a center vocal. You're not going to balance it. Um, and maybe that's the point of it. Maybe this is supposed to be the dark side of our character, of our narrator, like the devil on the shoulder kind of vibe. I don't know. Interesting decision. Every time that vocal came in, though, I was like, this is lopsided. Like my head just wants to fall to the right side. But I'm gonna wager they did it for a reason. I'm gonna believe there's intentionality to it, and it wasn't just some we have one vocal harmony. We'll just put it on one channel then. um, but we end this section. We begin to have this rising tension, right? Our vocals are hitting higher pitches than I think we've ever heard them do on the cleans. The rest of the instrumentation is starting to rise in intensity and volume, and I really thought we were just going to kind of hit this climax and then peter out, taper off, maybe just hold that note and until just a natural fade out on it. The instruments just let them ring, and the vocals will hold it, and then when they begin to run out of breath, they just kind of fall off the note. And, I had mentioned we're going to end on a high note here. And I didn't mean specifically a high note, even though that's where it felt it was going, but just like a major moment, the climax of the song. And we did. But also, we went back to the the aggressive, the darkened, the dark side of the song. Was not expecting that. It was an interesting decision to go for, and it worked well with the video because, of course, we had a new victim in the scene, so it was a sort of showing cycles, right? This isn't just a singular moment of hitting a dark point and, like I said, assuming the lyrics line up, becoming a murderer. This is a cycle. This is who this dude is. Is a serial killerer serial killer, not a one-time deal. And so we show that in the music by not ending it on this rock section, but bringing the heavy part back in. And it also works as an expectation subversion because I did call it a psych out ending or a fake out ending because it does feel like we are reaching a climax that's going to be the end of the song. And instead we have an entire other section that comes in next. So yeah, really great moment there. Um, So yeah, let's dive into some lyrics then. I think that's everything. Production was good. Nothing that really stands out to me is any negatives to it. It's a very well produced, well put together track that finds duality in a couple of places, which seems to fit in with our primary character here. So yeah, let me pull up some lyrics then. There we go. All right, a long road with a wall at the end, dark street facing me, slightly out of sight, eyes trained on your lights, with your door unlocked, been watching since 10 last night, in through the back 3 doors down to the right, a fence of a specimen led to violent wrestling, one bite through the muscle fiber, rip out the tongue that was inside her. All right, well, we definitely have a violent encounter here with a stalker. Been watching since 10 last night. And it says it's a dark street, so I'm guessing it's dark now. So we're looking at something close to 24 hours worth of stalking. And of course, he attacks her. There is a tussle, and then he takes a chunk out of her, one bite through the muscle fiber, and then rip out the tongue. Cannibal? I mean, based off the video, yes, but I'm trying to separate the video from what the music is. Although they seem to be very closely tied. This might be a case where both were conceived at the same time, mentally conceived, of course, where the visual components were always a part of the story. Chewy to the taste, but the look on her face gave me a feeling of warmth when she awoke, saw the chains and the choke. The feeling wasn't what I hoped. Down below, beneath my home, a butcher leaves meat on the bone. Rest, digest, you're only in a dress, but you could be in less. Then she awoke, saw her limbs have all broke, screams fading off into moans. Down below, beneath my home, a playground enjoyed on my own. Ropes made of ligaments, skin masks I made with my friends. The only way out was a wall at the end. Alright, so yeah, we definitely have somebody who is a serial murderer and has an entire thing in the basement set up for this activity, this morbid hobby, I suppose we could call it. Um, and the person he attacked in our first verse, he brought back to the basement and has them chained up, and they're looking around and they see ropes and skin masks that are all, well, ropes and masks made out of human body parts. And sees that the only way out has a wall at the end. So there's no way out, right? Everything's a dead end. Open the restraints, the fun will begin. Run, what's happening? Is it this way? What's happening? Is it this way? Everything's starting to look the same. Checking the doors, so close, but a wall's at the end. Did you think you'd escape? Don't try and run off. I'll reconsider the rape. Not dumb, I do this every day. Think you're safe, but you're not. Better make up your mind because you're out of time. You're driving me impatient. See, this is interesting. I kind of just played off that line from earlier that said, you're only in a dress, but you could be in less, as just a nice rhyme, right? Because we also have rest, ingest, dress less. Like, there's this really soft inner line rhyming going on that we saw a couple of times as well. Where's another one? Down below, beneath my home, playground enjoyed on my own. We have this O sound that's repeated throughout. Really nice syllabic ideas going on in here with these interline rhymes. So I figured that that was just something added in. But then we also have this line here that says, I'll reconsider the rape. And there is a ton of sexual attention being paid here that's, I mean, we are talking about a creep, but it's really adding an edge of uncomfortability to the song that pushes it, I think. And that might just be me being an American. Uh, Murder and blood are fine, but nudity, that's something we don't tolerate here. But yeah, to me, it adds that extra edge. It goes from being, a horror song to something that touches into the taboo. So it could be there entirely for shock value because the music video also has a lot of shock value component to it. So anyways, yeah, he lets her run, which is weird because he just said that all of her limbs were broken, but now he opened the restraints and she's running through the halls trying to find an exit. Sounds like a plot hole. I'm kidding. um, where are we going? Oh yeah, she's running and he says, just slow down, you're making me impatient, you know? You're not going to escape anyways. So if you play along, maybe I won't make this as bad for you, kind of idea. It says, open the back, cut it from the top to L5, closer to the end, suffer your reflection, ropes made of ligaments, the only way out has a wall, blah, 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 open the restraints, doing all this again. When you're inside my bed and I can tell that you're sad inside and there's a wall out, when you eat her so sensually, medium rare, when she awoke, saw the chains, the choke feeling wasn't what I hoped, down below, butcher, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, pretty much after this point, it's a lot of repetition. Interestingly, though, these aren't wholesale pulled back. Like the first time this line comes up, says chewy to the taste, but the look on her face gave me a feeling of warmth that when she awoke, she saw the chains and the choke, the feeling wasn't what I hoped. This line, it doesn't include the first one about chewy to the taste, and it doesn't move on into her limbs being, well, it does move on to her limbs being broken. Okay, so that whole part is taken wholesale. But there are a couple of sections here as I was skimming through where it'll take a section lyrically that we've already heard and take half of it maybe and then move it into the next section, which is really interesting because it has it creates this connectivity through the lyrical aspects where there's still callbacks. There's still callbacks to older ideas while still retaining a linearity to the lyrical aspect. It's very cool how they go about doing that as well. Like I mentioned already, all of the moments where we have the what I say a strong syllabic flow, just really nice interline rhyming in a couple of these spaces. There's a strong attention to detail to words that I think works very well here, even if it is an exceptionally dark track. Um, yeah, so I think the song is pretty much on the surface. We have the events told storyline wise fairly linearly about a serial murderer who kidnaps somebody and tortures them in his basement. And the music supports this. We have a lot of dark and heavy sections. They feel creepy and unnerving. There are a couple of sections I mentioned that are very stressful. They're looking into unstable chordal ideas, and of course we have that duality in the music as well in a couple of places. Yeah, very well done. I will probably never watch this music video again, Chronic Trigger. I can say that in the most positive way possible. And I probably will put a content warning at the beginning of this. I don't typically edit my videos in post. I just do it all live. But yeah, I think I got to put a little something. 'Cause you guys have a wild music video and some crazy lyrics. So, fantastic job. Congrats all around. Those are my thoughts on Chronic Trigger's Black Mental Epilepsy. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add to my analysis. I will not be putting my links in the description box, but I will be putting Chronic Trigger's links in there if you want to find their music, find more of their music or merch or anything else I can find, their social medias. Any links I can get access to, I'll toss down there. And yeah, that wraps this one up for this week. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.